to the Hope Over Coffee podcast, a place where we believe that life is better when we know and are known by others. We're here to stir your soul, ignite your passions, and help you find the hope that you've been searching for. So grab a cup, sit back, and enjoy the conversation as we dive into topics that matter most. We're excited to share this journey with you, and we hope that you will join us for every step of the way. All right, welcome back to the Hope Over Coffee podcast. I am your host, Jared Ogea, and this week, I'm actually really excited.
I am too.
I know I have this tendency to feed off other people's energy and character and who they are, and when we're together, I tend to get amped up just a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
not gonna lie. I enjoy having conversations.
I bring the energy, baby.
You bring the energy. You bring my energy in. So I have Mr. John Louviere.
Yeah.
He is, well, I don't want to tell everything who you are. I'm going to let you tell you who you are.
Sure, absolutely.
And let's just get rolling and see where we go.
I'm excited to be here, man. I've followed your podcast, and I've kind of been a part of some of this from the beginning. As far as like when you were thinking about it, you and I had some conversations at that time. I think when you first started thinking about it, I might have still been the student pastor at the church.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you and I were having conversations through, being in Fight Club group together, being, you were leading small groups for the student ministry and, just kind of talking about it. So I'm excited to see that you have said yes. Because I can remember back then you were like, man, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, that was one of those things.
Talking in front of people, like going out to, people or anything like that.
Yeah. And I still struggle. Who wants to listen to this guy from out in the sticks of nowhere?
I feel that, man. I feel the same way a lot of times. When I have to do vision moment or even preach, sometimes it's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to say.
Yeah. Who's going to listen to me?
Yeah.
But through that, I also understand that it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm just a mouthpiece of whatever God wants to get out there.
I mean, I'm glad that you're doing it because especially some of this latest stuff that you've been doing, the stories thing that you've been doing here lately with us, a lot of the Fight Club guys, but even like, I think you had Julia on the other day or a few weeks, maybe a month or two ago.
So
it might have been a while.
The not talent pool, the interviewee pool was really limited for me. So yeah, I did a couple episodes with the kids, but Julia was one of
They
the
have
ones.
Great things to say.
Yeah.
They've had really great student pastors.
Yeah.
Me and Ren and others. Probably too many student pastors.
I knew where you were going.
Yeah. No, but it's just been fun to kind of watch how it's evolved and where you've taken it. And so I know that you've said yes, and that's the most important thing. Yeah. So I'm really happy to be here.
I'm excited.
I was kind of upset that you hadn't asked me yet. I was feeling rejected.
Okay, now look, back in the beginning, there was an open invitation, literally for anyone to come on. I have it on the web. I have a website, right?
Yeah.
On the website, it says "Be a guest." Anybody can get on here. No one ever takes
it. Doesn't work, does it?
Yeah.
No.
You gotta ask.
You gotta ask.
And I've learned even the asking, you gotta say, "Hey, let's do it on."
You gotta actually book it. Yeah. It's like sales almost.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is
for sure.
Then you're getting them to say yes. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Being open-ended does not work.
I hear you.
I've learned that.
I hear you. Well, just I know that we talked about maybe me telling a little bit of my story, and so, I'm from New Iberia, which a lot of listeners may.
I've actually
hold
been
that
to New
against
Iberia
me.
one time.
There you go.
So.
It's not much reason to go back, I would imagine. There's a couple of restaurants there. Tabasco, Avery Island. That's a draw. Yeah. But I'm from New Iberia, but I moved to Lake Charles back in 2015 to start a magazine. I'm kind of going back a little bit further, to my childhood. I grew up in New Iberia, grew up in a Christian home. My parents were kind of when the church doors were open, they were always there. We were the family that cleaned the church. We cut the grass. This was at a really small church in New Iberia. But we did all that kind of stuff like that. And, growing up, family, solid family. We were all nuts, typical Cajun family. Like life was built around the next party and how we were cooking. And
now that I've met you and your brother,
yeah.
I can see it.
You see it, right? Yeah. I don't think anybody would deny that was a thing that was going on.
Yeah.
And so, had all that going on. At 8 years old is when I got saved. I actually wasn't at church. I was at home sick from church with my older sister, and I watched. This was back in like 90 or 91,
right?
And so this is 90s Christianity that I'm talking about here. And the only thing on TV on a Sunday is like Billy Graham crusades. Yeah. And so I watched a Billy Graham crusade and gave my heart to Jesus at my house with my sister.
That's interesting.
And so that was pretty cool to be able to, go through that. That's a weird part of the story. But my life, I guess, could kind of be characterized as a roller coaster ride. Mm-hmm. And like the highs are pretty high and the lows have been pretty low.
Right.
The obedience to Jesus and what he's called me to do in my life, when I'm doing that, has been great. And when I'm not doing that, you would not even know that I know a man named Jesus, and that's sort of what my life has been like. And it's been marked by different bouts of addiction. I have a very addictive personality.
To be honest, who doesn't?
Yeah, right. And so like when I do things, it's like go big or go home.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, and I might get into this, or I will get in. I don't mind getting into anything, but some of those addictions, whether it be porn or food or alcohol or different things, throughout my life. But, not really discipled young, but I did get a great youth pastor around my junior year of high school, like a great youth pastor. He was awesome and began to be discipled by him. And my summer before my junior year was when he came and he took us to Centrifuge in Glorieta, New Mexico. And I had an experience that was unlike anything I had ever had with the Lord, and I felt called to the ministry for the first time. I didn't say this, but I am one of the many pastors at First Moss Bluff.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, I was doing students. Yeah, now I'm doing connections, where I just get to help people with next steps and help people kind of, tell their story and different things like that, be baptized, all that stuff. And I have a wife. Her name's Amber. We've been married since 2006. And we have 2 kids, Reagan and Rhett. Reagan is a 13-year-old 8th grader, and Rhett is an 11-year-old 6th grader. And so that's kind of the family story. But, going through high school, I felt called to ministry as a junior, and I started to pursue that. And so before this, in high school, I was addicted to pornography. I had looked at pornography for the first time when I was like 11 or 12 years old. Back when it was, just magazines in your friend's, attic,
right?
Stuff like that. But going into high school, that addiction kind of stayed, but I started to really drink heavily in high school as well. And, addiction runs on both sides of my family to the point of like it ruining people's lives. And so I was definitely headed down that road. I can remember I was a freshman in high school, but I had an older cousin who really liked to hang out with me because I was a good time.
Right.
And so
you still are, man.
Yeah. And so I would hang out with them, and like they were doing older kid stuff, and I would do it with them. And so just really drinking heavily. But my junior year, the Lord got a hold to me, felt called to the ministry for the first time, and pursued that really through college. I got a job at First Baptist Lafayette with Bo Guidry. He's also a pastor at our church. And worked as his intern for a couple of years and led the cafe that was there and, different things like that. And but eventually, because of some circumstances in my life, I actually met Amber there while I was going to school at UL Lafayette and working at First. We were in the college group together. She's much older than I am, like 18 months.
Much older.
Much older. But I have to point that out. You know what I mean? And so I'm at First Baptist Lafayette, and my youth pastor that I told you about, the guy who was like kind of the discipler, my first discipler.
Right.
He fell into some sin and kind of he messed me up, and he messed up. And in turn, because I held him on such a high pedestal,
right,
a place where no man ever belongs, looking back, like now I know that, but at the time, it was like Jesus, then this dude.
Yeah.
Like, and so it threw me for a loop, and that started a time of about a decade or more of me being done with the ministry for sure, and kind of almost being done with church for a really long time. And during that time is where a lot of the addictions came back. especially the drinking addiction. I never really drank at home while I was married to Amber, but I coached, and so like we'd stay at the coach's office till all hours of the night, with a case of beer, and at a Catholic school, no less, and we'd get after it in that way, and sort of thing, and so it was just a weird situation where I was almost like living two lives, and not really hiding anything, but I did certain things one place and other things another.
You compartmentalized.
I did. I'm the king compartmentalizer.
I think all men have that capability. Because I think as men we have to.
Yeah.
And the problem is with our tendency to take things to excess, our addictive personalities.
Yeah, dude.
We can super compartmentalize and say, "Yep, that can stay over there, and I don't have to deal with it at home."
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And so that was kind of my life, when Amber and I first got married, and my pornography addiction came out probably in the first year or two of our marriage. She found out and was crushed. Amber is not one of those ladies who was okay with it. She was never okay with it, and it completely destroyed her. And so I had to make some hard choices about like what does this mean? And like I didn't have a group like Fight Club at the church I was going to, but I did have a couple of guys, and I tried to do it on my own for a while, and as you know, that doesn't work. So I needed community. I needed guys that were like actually on the same team, and that was the first thing that ever worked, was when I finally found some guys who could hold me accountable and call me out on my crap and actually get me. And so I was. The Lord delivered me from porn somewhere early 2007, 2008. I can still remember the time where I truly came clean. We were at Lake Falls Point for New Year's, and we were sitting outside of like.
I heard this. I heard you say this before.
Sitting outside the wash area at the campground, and I can remember just sitting there with Amber, and she knew something was up. She knew something was wrong.
Right.
But she didn't know the depth of it.
Right.
And I just came fully clean for the first time to anyone. I had never talked about this like all through high school. It was never a part of my story. It was a secret. Right. And I was really good at keeping it. And so I came clean to her, and dude, it was a rough night. And we were like on vacation with family, which was nuts.
Yeah, I can see where that would be intense.
It was intense. That's a mild way of putting it for sure. And so, but the Lord is faithful and gracious, and He helped us through that. And being involved with the group has helped, through that and that sort of thing with those guys back then. But what I realized after joining Fight Club, when I came into Fight Club, porn wasn't really an issue. So I came in kind of as, the pastor who was going to lead a group and help, a guy who was real honest about his struggle, but like, didn't think he was struggling at the time. But I asked the Lord, like, reveal in me anything that could be of an issue.
Right.
And the thing that He revealed to me is that I had put down one addiction and picked up another, because that's when my food addiction started.
Right.
And so that's been something that I've struggled with ever since, if I'm being honest. Still struggling to this day. You and I have talked a lot about this.
I mean, being in the Fight Club in that group together, when you started talking about it, I was like, oh, man. I'm doing the same thing. This has come up on multiple episodes.
Yeah.
Of me just sitting in the car before I come in the house to eat my candy bar before I come in the house.
Right.
Why?
Right.
No one inside this house cared that I was eating candy bar.
Yeah.
But the shame of it, that I had to eat this in secret. Like,
the shame is the same. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Over a candy bar versus full-blown pornography addiction.
Right.
It's all the internalness of it.
Yeah.
Is equal.
Yeah. And so I haven't struggled with alcohol, really in years, or porn in years. But my struggle with food has been ongoing. And I know what it is, right? Anytime we're struggling with something like that, we're looking to it to replace something that we're missing. And a lot of it has to do with identity in Christ, and we can get into that, but it's always, that's the symptom. Yeah. The larger issue is much more underneath the surface.
Absolutely.
Sort of thing. And so, kind of going back a little bit, I told you I was running for the ministry, from over a decade. Mm-hmm. After, I worked at First Baptist Lafayette. And during that time, I was, addicted to alcohol at times. I was addicted to food. I was I was going through a lot of things, and when I came to Lake Charles, I started a business, and the Lord brought us to First Moss Bluff. This is way too long of a story to probably get into today, but the Lord brought us to First Moss Bluff, and I was asked by Bo was here, which was a crazy story in and of itself, and he and Christian Nichols asked me and Amber to lead the college small group, and so we started doing that. Well, during this time, the Lord began to re-energize me for ministry, and like he started to call me back, but he also allowed a period of depression to kind of hit me because I wasn't being obedient to what he was calling me to.
Right.
Because I was making really good money doing what I was doing. You know what I mean? And so I hit a period of depression somewhere around 2015, 2016 that lasted for about a month. And during that time is where the Lord he gave Amber a verse for our life where she was like basically crying in the tub one night. And he gave her a verse, Ephesians 3:20, that he can do abundantly more than we could ever think or imagine.
Right.
And that's been a life verse for us ever since then, because this is at a time where I'm laying in the bed, can't get out of the bed days at a time. And he gave her that verse, and she prayed that verse over me for like a month. And I was able to stand up from that depression. And that's when I went and told the guys at the church, hey, the Lord is calling me back into the ministry. I don't know what that means. It could mean that I just continue to volunteer here. I love this church. I just need someone to know that I'm not running anymore.
Right.
And a year later is when JJ moved to executive pastor, and they offered me the student pastor job.
Dang.
So it was a year.
Yeah. And
so like during that time, like, you know, you learn lessons about yourself, about, well, can I be faithful while I wait on God's calling? And the Lord just showed me his faithfulness. Like even when I was so unfaithful for a decade, he was never unfaithful. He never strayed from me.
Right.
I strayed as far as possible from him, but he never strayed from me.
Full on sprint the other direction.
Yeah. I know I jumped around on that story, but that's kind of a lot.
That's
of
all
it.
good. I have so many, like, I have questions that go all the way back from when you started.
Go ahead.
But no, like just in that moment, just not to turn it back toward me, but it is my podcast. Well, it's God's podcast, but I'm steering it.
You're the host.
Yeah, I'm the host. No, I mean, even with the podcast itself.
Yeah.
That year, I think it's a year and a half ago, that whole, I feel like God's leading me down this path, and it's like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what it's supposed to look like. And like you said, I'm excited for where it's landing, but it took over a year, to get here, And man, just if it can, this is always my hope, my prayer. This through an episode, if one guy gets stirred up inside to allow the Holy Spirit to do something in him, to be like, oh man, I realize I'm doing that. I need to change that direction. That's exciting for me.
I remember you expressing that desire when we first started talking about this.
Yeah.
So I know that that's a true, genuine desire.
Yeah.
Because that was the desire from day one.
That part hasn't changed.
That actually brings a tear to my eye, man, just to think back on those.
I feel like Dusty gets goosebumps all the time. I got some chills just from, because that's exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to cut you off from your story because
ask any questions. We can hop around.
Well, and just thinking back to when you got started.
Yeah.
You got saved at your house because you stayed home.
Yeah.
I want to bring up the fact and point out that you don't have to go to church. It's good to be in the company of other believers, but God can move anywhere.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you have to go down to the altar.
Yes.
At the front of the church to
I did that the next week. Because that's the Baptist thing to do. But,
yeah.
No, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, he can meet us anywhere we are.
It's a great point.
There's not a set of rules.
Well, you saying that makes me think that that's been a theme of my life, of God meeting me where I am.
Yeah.
Because my life has been a roller coaster, man. Like I'm talking about ups and downs everywhere, dude. Everywhere. And, even daily at times, it can feel like a roller coaster. But like just the overall timeline has really been a roller coaster of me following Jesus with my whole heart and rejecting and rebelling from Jesus with my whole heart too. But every time God has met me where I was.
Yes.
And he's shown me his grace, and he's shown me he's been so faithful and so gracious and so merciful to me over the years. he will meet us where we are, and that's just
and wait patiently for us.
Yeah,
because when we're full on sprint the other direction, it's kind of like he's just standing like, well, when you're done, I'm gonna be not even far from you. I'm gonna be right behind you.
That's right.
The whole time.
That's right.
In the other direction, I'm still gonna be. As soon as you turn around, I'm right there.
It's our blindness that causes us to think that he's far.
That he's far away. Man, I actually was thinking about that probably last month or something. I'm doing some journals and whatnot. That it is in our feeling far away. He's really not. It is the fact that we're just blind to it.
Yeah,
we've put that idol of whatever we're chasing right between us and him, so we can't see him.
That's right.
And as soon as we pull it down, oh, there he is. Thanks for waiting for me.
That's right.
And then I'll just we're kind of talking about it. The patience, the long suffering of him waiting for us in the decade of he called you to something, had a path for you, and our free will we chose to avoid it, and then when we do come back, we're right back where he wants us to be.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy that he will use things that you reject to bring you back. I when I started running, when I do something, I told you this, I do it all the way.
Right.
And so when I ran, dude. I ghosted every friend that I had, including Bo Guidry.
Mm-hmm.
Bo Guidry was a mentor of mine during college. Like, I'm talking about great friends. We hunted together. We went places together. We actually lived together in the top of the college house when I worked at that church. And so, like, I'm talking about, like, close friends, and I ghosted him for a decade because I didn't want to deal with the pain.
Right.
I'm a runner.
Yeah.
That's who I am. Yeah. I'm a runner. I'm either going to run into the wall or I'm going to run from it. Like, I'm never a standstill guy.
Well, and okay, with that, I had an analogy I feel like the Spirit gave me a couple weeks ago, in that, people use examples of us walking in our faith. Like, we're either moving forward, we're standing still, or we're going backwards. I don't think we can actually stand still.
Yeah.
I picture life as bumper cars now.
Yeah.
And when you get in a bumper car, there is no reverse. It's, are you steering left, right, that pulls you around?
Yeah.
And when you hit things, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And when people hit you, how do you
react to it? Yeah.
How are you going to react to it? And then you can't stop. There is no stopping. Life is 100% forward. What are you doing in the steering? Where was I going with that?
No, I just thinking about our life and how.
Hit the wall, stop.
Yeah, like I would run from things, but that's the thing that the Lord has used more than anything to like. And, hindsight is 20/20. At the time, I didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
But just the fact that a month before Bo gets called to come back to be the small groups guy here at the church at first, I took the job in Lake Charles, and we met each other at a grocery store in Youngsville. And I said, hey, man, I'm moving to Lake Charles. I knew he was from here. I'm moving to Lake Charles. And he was like, wait, I'm moving to Lake Charles like next month. And he invited me to church at First Moss Bluff. I didn't even know Moss Bluff existed as a town. I was working in Lake Charles and didn't know Moss Bluff existed as a town. And so he invites me to church, and I go, and it's just it's a different feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And so this was back in like 2015. And so God, the things that I rejected in my rebellion and disobedience, he used in my redemption. Yeah. Which is sort of insane and crazy.
Insane and crazy, but at the same time, he does it
over and over.
Over and over again.
I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I was.
Yeah. I think us looking back on our lives, we can see all those redemptions. For those, I guess those of us pursuing him in that moment, we can look back at the redemptions.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas probably some people don't feel like that at all, or even just lost and don't pursue him at all.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're looking for something that are still tied up in those idols.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I hear somebody. J. Lou's here. He forgot. You're fine. You're not on camera. I mean, just.
What up, Bo? That's my dude back there.
Yeah. Now I'm lost. Moss Bluff. You were okay. I'm terrible with time. I forgot that you came in. That you were coming into Moss Bluff when Christian was still there.
Yeah.
But it makes sense now. I'm just time doesn't exist to me for some reason.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm the same way.
So when you laid out that timeline, I said, oh yeah, that is exactly how that went. That's interesting. So where are we at now? Where are you at in your story now? You said you were the connections pastor. What is that like? Trying to get people connected, because I get it. Like, okay, so I'm gonna back up and kind of talk about me and Dusty were having a conversation the other day. I hope you don't mind. I'm throwing his name out there.
No, please. I love that dude.
Yeah, great. Well, he's going on a mission trip too, but we're just having a conversation, talking about small groups. Because doing Fight Club, we're not really in any other small group right now.
Yeah.
But also at the same time knowing that I'm missing out. We're missing out on a small group.
Sure.
My issue is, man, when we first started doing small groups, way back in the beginning, had to be when Steve first got there.
Yeah, I think I remember when y'all had a group.
We landed in John Upmeyer's small group.
Yeah.
Dude, I think our problem is we can't reproduce it. That experience that we did where we actually really lived that life together, I know we're missing it, and I can't reproduce it.
Yeah.
We've tried leading our own groups. We did our own small groups.
Yeah.
We've hopped in other small groups, and no discount to any of the groups we've ever been in, but the vulnerability and the doing the life together, I think it's a culture shift that has to happen.
Sure.
So you being a connection pastor and getting people to literally change the culture of their mind to connect and be with people and being open and vulnerable and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What's that like for you from a church staff member perspective?
It is the most rewarding thing I've ever done, but also at the same time, at times, the hardest thing I've ever done.
People are people, aren't they?
Yeah, man. Like, and honestly, I try to never get mad at anybody over, like, because the worst of anyone I've ever seen, I've seen it in myself. And so, like, I'm never hard on, I try to not be. Now, if we're like you've been in group with me, if something tough needs to be said, I'm willing to say it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I try to do it from a place of like, hey man, like God has more for you. Place of love.
Right.
If I'm doing it out of anger, I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely.
And I try to catch myself on that. But as a staff person, one of the things that I love what I get to do, man. I get to, like what you're doing here, I get to do this every day.
Yeah.
Where I sit with people, I hear their stories, I hear what God's doing in their life. I try to help them with their next steps. One of the things that I think makes our church special is that we focus so much on next steps.
Right.
Like, hey, here, and next steps are for everybody. Like, you're talking about maybe missing something small group wise. That's it. Like, if that's the thing, and we got to figure that out. But like trying to find that thing, I think it's vision rather than nuts and bolts. The thing that keeps us from achieving what you had in that first group is maybe a loss of vision. One of my guys in ministry that I listen to a lot, he says vision leaks. And it's like a slow leak in a boat where it just, or like in a bucket where it doesn't leak all at once, but it leaks over time. And so we have to continually cast the vision of why that type of community is important and why it, like, we weren't made to do life alone, and the things that we always say.
And well, I mean, and the thought that always comes to my mind is Exodus.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally watched insane miracles, miraculous miracles of God that would seem
deliverance.
It's literally supernatural.
That's it.
And literally just turn around and start worshiping something else.
People have always been the same.
People forget so easy. So why would we be any different?
Yeah, I think a short memory is a tool of the enemy too.
Yeah.
He'll convince us that, that was that, but this is different.
Yeah.
God did it then, but like this moment in time is different somehow.
And it's not.
It's really not.
People are people.
People are people. And so, just trying to help people with, one of the things that Roy encouraged us as pastors to really think about is the vision that people have for their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a vision for ministry that I'm necessarily talking about.
Right.
What I'm talking about is like a vision personally that we have for our lives.
Yeah.
And what kind of a man, what kind of a husband, what kind of a father, wife, mother, follower of Jesus do you want to be? And like that vision doesn't come from us.
Right.
That vision comes from the Spirit at work in us. And so when I'm having these conversations, when I'm trying to do what you asked me about, that's the thing that I try to keep at the front of my mind is like, I want to help this person have a big vision for their lives.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know you've probably heard Roy say that, in Fight Club
More likely,
or different things.
I
But
spent
like
time with Roy, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Roy.
Likely. Yeah.
But that's what we're trying to do is point people to, hey man, God has more for you than your life of addiction. God has more for you than your life of misery and pain.
Yeah.
And, anxiety and depression and like all the things that people come to us dealing with. God has more. It's not a quick fix or a magic pill, but there is something else. And let me introduce you to what that could be for you.
Well,
and the church's role in it.
And I mean, I feel like we're on the same path with what God's trying to accomplish through the podcast.
Sure.
Because I think it was Impact probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah.
Whatever event it was kid oriented. It was student oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Angie were sitting on the right side of the sanctuary in the back. And for whatever reason, I just looked up across the crowd, and I think this is why the podcast is what it is and where my heart is, because I looked up across the crowd and I was like, how many of these students are not living their best life? Because I don't want to like, I don't want to sound like somebody else.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I don't want to be. You can be misinterpreted easily.
Yeah, living beneath their privilege that God gave them.
Yes. Yeah. And they're just content with it.
Yeah.
Like Sunday morning, I'm good. I'm like, we know there is so much more, and I really feel like my heart breaks when, because I can do it on Sunday morning too. I can look across
Absolutely.
the congregation. I'm like, man, what would it look like if we really pursued and sacrificed to reach what God is calling us to?
Yes.
How many, especially men, because I think if we can change the hearts of men, we can change the hearts of families, son. Which is why I think this is where it is, where it's focused on. But man, there's so much more. Why are you content with just sitting there on a Sunday morning? And I mean, we know why, because it's easy, it's comfortable, we enjoy our sin. These are all conversations that we've had in groups.
100%. Well, one of the things that I think that we minimize as men, but really as people, is that we are at war.
Yes.
Not just with ourselves and our flesh, which that is a war between flesh and spirit.
Right.
But we're also at a war with an enemy who hates us. If you're a follower of Jesus, Satan hates you.
Yeah.
He hates your life and he wants to destroy you.
I think that's part of the problem. I don't think men really understand how much he hates us.
That's right.
Like, absolutely.
Wants to destroy us.
Wants to destroy us.
Yeah, wants to destroy your family. He hates everything about you if you're a follower of Jesus.
Right.
And especially if you're pursuing Jesus. If you're a follower of Jesus in name only, and not in actual pursuits, he'll leave you alone. He's got you right where he wants you. And this is something I learned in my life, man. For a long time, I didn't feel attacked by the enemy because I was doing what he wanted.
Right.
So, like, what's he got to come at me for? And so I think that's one of the things that when we look around and we see so many people living, I think the enemy is at war with us. And I think one of the things that he uses more than anything is one, ignorance to his presence and like his role in this dark world. But two, I think he uses the fact that, my situation's different.
Yes.
And a lot of us have never, like I told you, I had never confessed my pornography sin in my life.
Right.
Before I was 22 years old. Mm-hmm. From 12 to 22, I hit it. And so that's the crazy part, is that he will convince us that our situation is unique.
Yes.
our struggle is unique and we're dirty, we're weird, we should be ashamed, all those types of things. And that causes people to just put on the mask, become a shell of themselves, and just kind of float through life. I see so many people just floating through life hoping to never be discovered.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I was, honestly, man, for a really long time.
You know, back in the day when I first got saved, I really felt like God was leading me towards students.
Yeah.
To speak to students. We did student ministry back in Iowa, and which, I mean, to be honest, it's amazing how similar stories are. When I started running from God, doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
The youth minister that was there at the time, like, confronted me, and I cut ties.
Yeah.
Like, he was trying to present truth in love, and I was like, not listening.
You weren't ready for it. Yeah.
But anyway, that was.
I bet you blamed him though.
Probably at that point in time, yes.
Yeah.
More than likely.
That's usually what we do.
Yeah. But no, what really, I guess what I'm trying to get to is when it came to Moss Bluff, we started getting back in, started pursuing God again, helped out with youth over there.
Mm-hmm.
Christian was there. Angie was actually helping out when Adam. Do you remember? That was. Yeah. And then JD was kind of took over when Adam left.
Sure. And
through the line, she was in it longer because she really feels called to student ministry way more than
she's great at it.
Yeah, than I do. But older now, kids. I don't feel like kids want to listen to a 45-year-old guy talk about stuff.
You always cut yourself short, but that's okay.
But at the same time, after going through Fight Club and realizing what it's like to be vulnerable, to confess all those things and come out of that shell and really live life, it also breaks my heart. And I think this was kind of part of that when I looked across the crowd at the kids, is how many are stuck in especially pornography addiction, because we live in a freaking culture.
And it's not just guys anymore.
No, it's not.
You know?
And it was frustrating to me, and still is. Back when, in Fight Club, there was, when it first started, of the intent of it. Yeah. That we had an age restriction.
Right.
And it's with good cause. I mean, I get
There's
it.
There's
reasons for it.
Yeah.
But it breaks my heart that we can't help kids until they're men.
Sure.
They're stuck building this lifestyle
of
pornography from 10 years old now to 18. They have 8 years of ingrained sin that is literally just wrapping them up to do bad things. Yeah. And it breaks my heart that we can't really do anything about it can't officially do anything about it because of legalities until they're 18.
I've had those same thoughts over the years, and one thing that you mentioned earlier is if you can get the man of a house, you can get his family.
Yes.
And so one of the things I've been encouraged by as I've thought through that is that, but if we can get their dads,
yes,
and we can get their dads talking about it, because guess what me and my son are talking about? Yeah. We're talking about it. Because I'm a Fight Club man.
Right.
And so we, for this challenge, we had 140-ish guys start this challenge. Mm-hmm. If we can get 140 men going back to their family talking with their sons about it, that can bridge some of the gap. Yeah. The second thing is, one of the things that kind of got started when I was doing students was this Thursday night group of boys who met. I think Paul was actually a part of that.
Yeah. I think he was.
And so, just over the years, that group's still going. Yeah. And I know they talk about it and they address it and they do that. But I'd love to brainstorm like how do we bridge the gap? Yeah. Because there is a gap of like, how do we do this both, effectively but also legally?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're dealing with children and like you're talking about some pretty heavy subjects.
And I don't know any specific parents, but there's also this cloud of parents that are like, my kids don't deal with that. They don't.
Yeah, it's
yeah, they do.
It's so much ignorance. It's crazy.
You have no idea. If your kid's in public school, especially in public school,
I know so many parents who like give their kids an unlocked cell phone that has.
I don't even have an unlocked cell phone.
No restrictions on it, no software on it to help track, no nothing, and they just give it to them. And I tell parents all the time, like, you're handing your child like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, a loaded weapon.
It's a loaded weapon, and you're just giving it to them like it's not a big deal. And I always tell people, there is a way. I have, like, both my kids have iPhones, but it just soon be flip phones.
Yeah.
We got iPhones because they were free at the time, like when we went to get them. But like we have those suckers so locked down. There's no internet on these phones. So like we have them completely locked down, with screen time and parental passcodes and, so there's a way to do this. You just got to figure it out and actually do this. But just so much. I don't even know what it is. It's ignorance, but also just people being naive and thinking, oh, my kid's not going to struggle. I'm telling you, like, the average age of a boy now looking at pornography is 7.5 years old.
Yeah. For
the first time.
Yeah.
By the age of 13, most of them are pretty much addicted.
Addicted, yeah.
And for girls, the average age of looking at it is 12. And some of the girls are actually getting addicted to it. And I try to tell parents this all the time. They're looking at it for different reasons. The boys, obviously we look at it because we like what we see.
Right.
The girls are looking at it because every one of the boys that they're trying to date is addicted to pornography.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at it, what do I need to do to be loved?
Right.
What do I need to do to be... But once they look at it, it has the same reaction in a female's brain that it does in a male's brain.
Yeah.
They're looking at it for different reasons, but once you're there, the hooks are in.
Right.
And so the addiction is the same way. And so I try to tell parents, girls, boys, we better be talking about it with them. We better let them know this is coming because they're going to see it. You can't hide it forever.
No.
No matter how many restrictions, because their friends don't have them.
No, they don't. And I mean, the culture we live in, you can't watch TV anymore,
bro,
with commercials, and it's sex sells everything.
That's it, dude. I know, like, being on the Fox News app every now and then, I have to like catch a thought.
Yeah.
And take a thought captive on the Fox News app.
Yeah.
It's just, it's coming at you from every which way.
It's crazy.
So.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, it is.
And now, I don't know where we're at. Is there any more of your story that you want to share with us? We've been hopefully getting some encouraging words to.
Yeah, these days of just being at the church and seeing what God is doing at First has been an incredible thing to watch and be a part of. I started as just a church member.
Mm-hmm.
I came on staff after I was already there. I used to, run the slides in the booth for worship and, stuff like that. And so to kind of see where the Lord has taken us and where he continues to take us, and like seeing him call out people, and especially men, into ministry. There's so many men who are being called out. You mentioned Dusty, Chris Walker, yourself. I view this as you're calling out, like this podcast and what you're doing here.
And to be honest, I struggled because I mean, you walk through the lobbies Sunday morning.
Yeah.
9:00 service, 9:30. Whatever, middle service, whatever that one is. I'm sitting in the lobby.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want to do something, but it's like, okay, I'm doing this. I am participating in Fight Club, and it's like not getting overloaded.
Sure.
You don't have to be doing something every single second of doing ministry, but at the same time being okay with not doing something.
Sure.
I think that's important to say too.
Absolutely.
Because we could place the ministry before God, and I got to do all these things because this is what he's called me. Like, yeah, but slow down a little bit.
Yes.
Like I get it. He wants you to do things, but don't make the ministry more important than the relationship and putting God first.
Yes.
I want to throw that out there.
No, I love that. And I think, this Southern man culture that we were raised in, live in, have grown in, is about, you got to go earn it.
Yes.
And that bleeds into grace. And earning it is not part of the gospel.
No.
What we do is an overflow of what Jesus has done. It's not what it is.
Yeah. And man, so also with that, working out your salvation, I say this too. We do have to put in the work. We do need to do
sure
We are supposed to do it. It's not just sit back and let him.
Yeah,
there is work to do, but it's we get to.
That's it.
And I think that's missed on a lot of men, like you said, especially around here where, man, you put on your boots and you go to work.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And you can start to conflate the two, where I have to earn this grace. I have to earn this salvation. I have to earn, this love from Jesus. And that's not the gospel. The gospel is that it's given.
Yes.
And it's transformational. And because we're transformed, because we have a new heart and a new life, that's why we do the things that we're being called to do. That's why we are, faithful and obedient to what God is calling us to do. And so it's not because the honest truth is, dude, I have zero discipline. It's like if we're counting on me and my discipline to get something done, the Lord He knows He's looking in the wrong spot. And so it's His transformation in my life, His work in my life that is causing me to, reject my past and reject who I was and step into the new life that He has for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that makes me just think of looking across that crowd. And because of where we live in Southwest Louisiana, the plant worker is a majority occupation. And in that plant life, there's a lot of guys that, man, I got to work to get all this money so I can have the big truck. I got to have the nice boat so I can do all this stuff. And I feel like that's another area they put in front of their walk, that I got to have all this stuff so that I look good and I appear valuable.
Yeah.
Because I have all these things.
I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
You've been leading groups for a while. You've been doing this podcast. You've been doing different things, trying to call men to more.
Yes.
What have you learned over the last couple of years that is a good way to communicate, hey, there's more for you in this life. Stop settling for less. Stop settling for your addictions or, anything. What have you learned that has really changed kind of your mindset when you're doing that? Because I feel like you've been doing that for a few years now with men.
Yeah. I think the greatest tool in that, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but the greatest tool is curiosity.
Yeah.
Self-realization, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Through the work of the Holy Spirit is I think the most powerful tool that can happen to a man.
Gotcha.
Me telling you need to quit doing porn, that goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Me even telling you the benefits of, hey, if you would quit putting this idol first and pursue God, your life would be completely different.
Yep.
It can go in one ear and out the other. So and I think that's what God has built that into us, is to be curious. If you can't tell, I've been hanging around Roy a lot.
Yeah.
Hang through.
Roy's changed a lot of us on this, by the way.
Yeah.
His mindset.
That mindset. And I think it's the right mindset.
Yeah.
I think it's the right approach because like I said, being curious about another person, it gets them to think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you what to do, in which I was kind of talking about this with Dusty the other day, and I don't know if I can express it correctly. God has given us, I feel God has given us rules and laws to follow and guidelines to do, but there's a lot of things He didn't tell us how to do. And I think some of that is in relationships. And the examples that we do have that I think are the most impactful are the ones where we're curious about the next person.
So true.
So yes, being curious, which again, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, sure.
I think you hit it on the head, and I appreciate the question, because you're curious about me. You've given me a sense of significance by asking me a question.
I feel you. Yeah.
So, and going through all the groups, I've also learned that if we could boil down life to a few basic things, men want significance, women want security.
That's right.
You could tie everything in life back to those two things.
That's right.
So in me being curious in another man, it makes him feel significant and important and valued. And again, making him question his own beliefs, because we can't live outside of our belief system.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. even if we say one thing but we act another way, that's our belief system.
Yeah.
Getting him to question his belief system and I don't know the right word, but making him change it. Not me making him change it, but the Holy Spirit working through him that he wants to change that belief system where his actions will start to follow.
I love it.
That's what I've learned from doing these groups.
That curiosity you're talking about is, to me, what has changed my relationships. It's changed every group I'm a part of. So like you mentioned, small group. Small group is never probably going to be like Fight Club,
right,
or Journey. But it's a good additive thing to my life and that sort of thing. But I've taken a lot of the principles I've learned about leading a Fight Club group and applied it to my small group.
Right.
Like the follow-up questions that are digging, probing, getting people to come out with more and more details and doing that more effectively has helped increase some of what you were talking about a while ago. Like, because not all small groups are going to be like your first one.
Yes, they're not.
But you can, as the leader, like we can look to bring out more and do things like that.
And in trying to foster that environment is hard. It takes a lot of intentionality in trying to be curious all the time.
Yeah.
And get it wrong a lot.
Yeah.
Because we're selfish people and we turn it back on ourselves. But I think probably the most frustrating part is when people don't get into the culture.
Yes. And
it's disheartening.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to where tomorrow, there's something better. That if we could do life this way, going back to that group, man, if your kid was having a football game, man, the group went.
Yeah. If
we were having a party, everybody went. Yeah. It's literally that community, because God is a perfect community.
Yeah.
I like Larry Crabb. I love Larry Crabb books, man. They
changed my life, honestly.
And the way he explains, he talks about it is the community is a dance.
Yeah.
It's the dance between God, Father, Spirit, Son, and we get invited into that dance.
Yeah.
And being that joyful community, man, missing out. I don't know how else to explain it. You're just missing out.
Yeah.
Like, what else do you say to that though? So yeah, that's.
So I have had the pleasure of watching you and your journey over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Since you joined Fight Club, and I saw you go from a parent who wasn't as curious to now a parent who's like unbelievably curious, and I think has an open dialogue with his kids.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's an incredible thing to watch from the outside, and like you having them on the podcast, and, junk like that. And so, one of the reasons I think parents don't ask questions, and I'm asking this because I have a 13-year-old who's about to go to high school, an 11-year-old, and so I'm getting into where you've kind of been over the last few years.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious about a guy who's kind of been through the season that I'm about to enter.
Yeah.
With teenagers and going through high school and getting into college and all that. How do you just keep from being scared to ask the tough question?
People are people.
So even with the kids?
Even with the kids. I mean, we're all we're all jacked up. We all have our quirks and failures.
Yeah.
And they're people, they just happen to be of my bloodline.
Which makes them even more jacked up.
Yeah. I mean,
it's my responsibility at that point.
Yeah. No, just, I mean, going through the things that I've gone through, in the failures that I've had, and running from God, knowing that they could do the same things.
I hear you.
And just loving them. I think some of the greatest moments, probably one of which was actually on that couch of talking with Julia or Kristen, whichever one it was, probably both. And just the fact that they had the enough courage to say the things that they didn't want to found out.
Sure.
And they had the expectations that we were going to blow up, that they weren't going to be loved anymore.
Sure.
And just looking at them like, I get it. And then they're like, you're not mad? Well, I'm like, I'm disappointed, but you don't know all the things I've done.
Right.
And just really just loving them through it and being in encouragement. And man, so one day me and Julia were riding in the car and feeling like a failure as a parent, because we are a blended family, all the things I did in the past,
sure,
whatnot. But also trying to have those conversations, say, hey, look, I screwed up in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But her coming back, Julie coming back at me, it's like, Dad, if you wouldn't be where you are now doing the things you did, you wouldn't be who you are right now.
Sure.
That was probably the most encouraging thing ever as a parent, for a kid to tell you that, like, I get it, you screwed up, but God's got you right now. And if he wasn't there with you through those whole things, you wouldn't be leading us the way you're leading us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things we have to remember about God and his character is one of his biggest traits is that of restoration. He's looking to restore what the enemy breaks.
Yeah.
And so we just had to get out of his way sometimes and let him do that. But, with the kids, what I hear you saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is parenting not from a place of fear, because if we're fearful all the time, we're not going to parent well.
Yeah.
But from a place of, I'm raising Christ followers.
Yes.
I'm discipling as much as I'm parenting.
Yeah.
And if I'm discipling somebody, I'm not going to be fearful of their decisions. I'm going to help them walk through it. And just because it's our kid doesn't mean that changes necessarily. There may be a little bit of extra complexity, but
yes. And man, so it's funny. You're making me think all these different things. So one day we were trying to get all the old little cassette tapes of home videos. Me and Andrew together, we had some videos. And we're trying to get them digitized.
Yeah.
And I was doing it myself, and it was a lot of hard work, and I never finished it. But it was interesting. Right there, Kristen, probably that tall.
Yeah.
And we're doing Christmas cookies. And the controllingness that me and Angie both had, we're like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
No, you gotta make the cookie look just right. You gotta you did. And now, the youngest is 17?
Yeah.
Seeing that personality of, that fear and trying to control them so tight. And now it's like, hey, okay, it'd be better if you went this way, and to try to turn into more of an encouragement.
So good.
Than a law.
Yeah.
Being relational instead of legalistic.
Yeah.
To bring it back to biblical terms.
Yeah.
But parenting like that. And so I said this in an episode before. See right over there? They got 3 bow ties.
You've told me about this.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Walking with them in a sense to know that they are going to be their own Christ followers one day with their own family, I think is key. Mm-hmm. Do I always have that in mind, even with a dang reminder on a wall when you walk in the front door? No.
Yeah.
Because going way back at the beginning, we're forgetful people.
Sure.
But yeah, the my biggest encouragement for a man leading a family is being understanding.
I love it.
Doesn't matter if they're little bitty or 20-something-year-olds, they still want security and significance.
Yeah. See the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
Too many times we get this myopic vision where we can only focus on that moment, and then we're fearful about what's happening in that moment, or we're angry about what's happening in that moment, or stressed or whatever.
Yeah.
And we end up ruining the moment.
Yeah.
Because of our pride or need for control or anger or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas if we would take a step back, see the forest for the trees, the moment of making those cookies is more important than if the cookies come out.
Come out, yeah. And watching the video, I was like, why did I
but
care?
We missed that so much, dude.
Why did I care these cookies had to look perfect?
Right.
They're freaking cookies that we were going to eat.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah. But we do it all the time, right? And I think we do that even in our own lives. Like we miss out on moments and we miss out on experiences with the Lord because we're too, we're like, we have these blinders on and we don't see everything that he could be doing, around us. And, even when we don't see it, he's at work.
Yeah.
As that song says. I'll start singing for everybody.
So, yeah.
What do you see as next for you, man?
That is, I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest, back when I did finally start doing this and I did start doing the video and whatnot, my flesh was like, oh man, this is going to turn big. I'm going to do all this thing. And it hasn't.
Sure.
To be honest, it's like tens of 20s of people.
Hey man, I got one of those podcasts. At the church, we have tens of viewers.
Tens of viewers. Tens of 20s of viewers.
Yeah. That's not what it's about.
But it's not what it's about.
Yeah.
But in my flesh, I want it bigger.
I hear you.
Just being obedient to what end, I don't know. If after 40 episodes
4-0.
4-0, big 4-0.
Yeah.
If it impacts one person episode, hit 40 people.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna keep doing it. And to be honest, I love this. I've said this. I don't know if I said this on other episodes, but the relational aspect of it.
Sure.
Of just sitting down and having conversations. I have come to realize I value words a lot. And I don't like small talk. I don't like chit chat conversation. Let's have a conversation.
Let's get to the meat.
Yeah, let's eat on something. Let's chew on something.
Sure.
And so if it means that I get to keep having these conversations and telling stories, I'll go until he tells me to stop. Hopefully I'll hear if he tells me to stop and not put it in front of him and be like,
right.
oh, you told me to do this. This is what I'm going to do, Trying to be mindful of that and humble in that I'm like, I can only do this as long as he wants me to.
Yeah.
And if he does say stop, that I want to hear.
Yeah.
Because whatever he has next is looking back, not just the past couple of years, literally in my life, I can see where personality and who I am has shaped what this podcast is.
Yeah.
And the fact of how much I value words and I value relationships. I don't know if I said it on an episode or not. I didn't have and I say intimate, a knowledgeable relationship with another man.
Yeah.
Until Fight Club.
Yeah.
I didn't let men into my life in knowing me until then.
Yeah, and I don't even think when you started this, you even knew that was a desire you had.
Yeah.
Self-awareness wasn't there yet.
Right.
It was, it was being worked on, but it wasn't there yet. And so to see you kind of come that far, I can say for myself, I feel the same way. We mentioned, God continues to call men out in our church and women into, ministry and what he has for them and like things that are outside of comfort zones and all that sort of stuff. And like, even though I work at the church, I'm looking for what God is calling me to, whether it be relationships and things that I do and, the way that we do things and where God is taking the church and all that. And so I see that same thing for myself. Mm-hmm. I want to be obedient. I want to listen. We talk all the time. Like, I don't want to get tied to something.
Yeah.
I want to listen to what he has next because I want to be walking in line with him because I spent years not, and I'm just kind of over that. Yeah. I don't want to do that anymore,
So if you could encourage someone, would you say that be open to change?
Absolutely.
We say we hate change.
Yeah.
Feed a guy a peanut butter jelly sandwich every day. Tell him that he hates change. He'd be like, no, I'm sick of freaking peanut butter jelly sandwiches.
No, I hear you.
So
we don't hate change. We hate what the fears that change brings about.
I think, yeah. And if I could add to it, it's a fear of changing my expectations.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah.
Because I have the expectation of what I want met.
It's true.
And you're changing what I want. How dare you?
The vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I've learned, man, is and this is actually something I've been pretty decent at over the years. I've learned that like every time God has brought about change, it was to prepare for something else.
Yeah.
He doesn't just change for change's sake. He's preparing us for what's next.
Yeah.
And his plan's always better than mine anyway.
Yeah. Well,
and in the moment, it's tough to like get on board sometimes because it's like, nah, man, I'm enjoying this. But if we do it and we go for the ride with him, it always turns out better.
Yeah. Sorry, what came to mind when you were talking about getting us prepared for something else? We were talking about it before we started the episode that Paul, Kristen, and Julia all got in a wreck.
Jeez.
In the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And all 3 cars have been totaled. Dude, I have so many stressors going on right now.
For sure.
And old me does want. We never really conquer. I mean,
it's always there.
We can conquer it.
The flesh is there, bro.
But the flesh is there.
That's it.
But the point, I was talking to Blake Gilbert yesterday morning, just kind of talking through some stuff because I need. He's in my circle.
Yeah, for sure.
My guys I need to talk to, and it's like God can allow these things. Not saying he caused them, but he allows them.
Sure. And
he's gonna. What is he getting me ready for?
That's right.
Why has he allowed which I know. I think I know. Part of my weakness and fear is financial strain.
Sure.
I want a lot of money in the bank to feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's really not. He's not allowing that to happen.
Not with 3 cars wrecked.
Not with 3 cars wrecked. Because I mean, we're literally had to like swap cars, and I had to fix the white car, all these things, a whole bunch of those. And I was really thinking about, world's crazy right now, and I don't think it's going to get better per
Seems
se.
like it's going, yeah.
It's I was like, is he getting me ready for like something else? If I can't handle dealing with the strain of 3 cars and getting my family around, how can I handle whatever's coming next?
Sure.
So that thought has crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really what he's doing, but at the same time, I like what you said, getting us ready for the next thing. He doesn't just change things. Just don't be different just to be different.
Right.
We're different because he's moving us into a place to be curious about the next guy, to be to minister to someone that what we just went through.
The important thing is not the change.
No.
The important thing is not the circumstances that cause the struggle.
Yeah.
The important thing is the perspective and the submission in our lives that says, okay, God, what are you teaching me?
Yeah.
Because, dude, like over the years, that type of experience, I would have freaked out. I would have tried to figure it out myself, and I would have maybe come to God like later.
Yeah.
But, and this isn't my experience. I'm just saying, like, normally that would be but man, I hope that my submission to him and his work in my life would cause me to say, okay, God, what are you teaching me right now? Is it patience? Is it preparing me for harder times? Like, what are you trying to, where are you trying to grow me? I think that's the important point, is that it's, oftentimes our circumstances are a microscope to our walk.
Yeah.
And like who we actually are, how we're responding to situations.
Yeah, and I think because I mean I was doing it too until yesterday, of like, oh man, it's another thing. I mean
it's easy to get poor me after 3 wrecks, bro.
And through conversations like talking, man, I feel like I'm getting punched in the face,
sure,
over and over again, because not only the 3 wrecks, the van that Julia's driving right now, she was driving it because I was working on her car,
right,
pre-wreck.
Bicycles.
The radiator blew up.
Bicycles. That's the answer.
Yeah.
From my way.
Yeah. All the way. Yeah. My 20-minute drive on a bike.
Yeah.
But, radiator blew up. I thought that van was going to be toast. And then this whole string of the past 2 to 3 months, I feel like I've just literally been punched in the face.
It can become a lot.
Over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then, you get one more phone call, got in a wreck. Man. But to that extent, yes, old Jared, old coping mechanisms want to kick in.
Sure.
Ultimately, they haven't. But I think that's a testament of God working in us.
100%.
That, man, if this would have happened 4 or 5 years ago, man, I would have went. It would have been bad.
Yeah.
It would have been really bad because I would have turned to coping mechanisms that was unhealthy.
Yeah. I mean, Amber and I have had some similar experiences with our houses over the last few years. And I told you, like, 2015, 2016 was a bout of depression that knocked me out, like, put me in the bed for a while. And I had never dealt with even anxiety before that, bro. It was, like, out of the blue when this happened. But since then, we've had some issues, man. Like, the hurricanes, you know, everybody was messed up from the hurricanes.
I didn't cope with those as well either.
Yeah. But then, like, our house was kind of okay, but we had to get trees out of the yard and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of almost like felt like we survived the hurricanes, you know, as opposed to a lot of other people that had it way worse. But then the next May, when the flood happened in Lake Charles, our house flooded.
Right.
And then so we moved to one of the houses that the church owns while we were getting that fixed. And then we decided we were going to buy a house in Ragley. Well, that house wasn't. The whole sale got delayed because of the hurricanes, and like everything was delayed. So we were just waiting. We finally get into this house, and then the tornado comes through Ragley and hits our home. And like, it doesn't mess the home up necessarily, but like it messed up the shop and, you know, just some other things. And like we talked about, what else is there going to be? Is there going to be like the first earthquake Louisiana has felt in a long time? Like, we have experienced everything at this point. You know, when's the next shoe going to drop? But me and my daughter Reagan last night were talking about that mentality that says, when's the next shoe going to drop? Isn't a faithful mentality.
Right.
It's not a Christ-like mentality. And like, so we have to fight against those thoughts. We have to change our perspective of like, okay, Lord, you know, maybe I was putting too much stock in the assets that I own and the homes that I own and, you know, that kind of stuff. And are you trying to teach me, like, what are you teaching me in this time? And so the ability to ask that question is the important part.
Yeah.
It's not what life and the circumstances of life, they're really hard, but they're not the important things.
Yeah.
It's how we're walking through. And, bro, pot calling kettle black. Okay, so I get this wrong all the time.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm learning over the years is that our reaction to circumstances is way more important than the actual circumstances.
Man, I think that goes back to the example, example he gave me of the bumper cars.
Yeah.
I mean, because sometimes you got that one guy in a bumper car coming all the way across the track, and just hit you, and you're like, that hurt.
Yeah.
Get undisoriented, and then what's next? So then you start waiting for that next car to come all the way across. But yes, I'm there, but I think yesterday really helped through conversation, having that community.
Bro. Yeah.
Of, hey man, I need to verbalize this.
The difference isn't that Jared's so much better.
No,
it's that you have put things, or you have allowed the Lord to put things in your life that help during that time. So community is a huge part of that.
Humongous part.
Yeah.
And being able to verbalize it.
Yeah.
And perspective. Someone else's perspective. Like, hey, like, you're okay.
Right.
What's God trying to teach you? I'm like, that's a good question.
I just wanted to vent.
I hope I get the answer right. Like, what's next? No, that's awesome of changing our perspective. I think perspective is a huge key that a lot of men don't get.
It's true.
Because we do get locked in.
Dude.
On 3 cars that got wrecked.
That's right.
Like, what am I gonna do now?
I gotta fix this. I gotta solve it.
Yeah, I gotta do this. How are we gonna do this? I gotta do this. Because I mean, as men,
we do.
We're provider. We're the top one in charge. The next one's up.
Question is, who am I trusting in though?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I appreciate it.
Unless you got something else.
No, I'm sorry I asked you a couple of questions at the end.
No, dude.
Turn into the host.
No, I love conversation.
Yeah.
No, it was good. I appreciate the questions.
Yeah, man. I appreciate what you're doing, Jared. I think allowing men to tell their story is going to help. I really do.
I think my hard part is getting the next guy in the seat.
Sure.
Because they have the same struggles. Who wants to hear my story? Do I have enough courage to tell my story?
Sure.
Especially for the world.
Yep.
I get it. Only 10 to 20 people watch this or listen to this.
But
it's literally could be global.
That's right.
And that can be scary.
Yeah.
Feels scary for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you got somebody that you think would want to come do this,
yeah,
you tell me a name and I'll go hit them up.
Love it.
But that was another thing, like, because in Fight Club we have the devotionals, a large group devotional before we go to our smaller groups, and not every guy's going to have that opportunity to be in front to give a devotional. I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to tell their story. And I mean, and that's where y'all are headed too with the other podcast, the storytelling, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
bro, the Lord uses stories.
Yeah.
And the more of that we can do, I view all this working together.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to give people the opportunities. We have the same vision that you're talking about, to give people the opportunities to tell that story.
And I mean, faith walk.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things is when you're sitting there listening to someone else tell their story.
I'm not alone in this.
I'm not alone.
Yep.
Guys, you're not alone.
That's it.
We're all struggling with the same stuff.
We're all jacked up idiots.
We may pick a little bit different coping mechanisms.
Sure.
We're all dealing with the same thing.
That's right.
And I do want more guys to tell their story.
I love it.
Just getting them in the seat.
I'll be your wingman. I'm good at calling people out.
Yeah. when
I may not be good at it, but I enjoy it.
When you're talking about sitting in a group and you're like, have the courage to call somebody out, I'm like, yeah, he'll do it. In a loving way. Not saying it's not. I
try to be loving. Yeah. No, sometimes it probably hits a little raw, but hey.
Well, no, because I'm usually sitting there like, he's right. Like, you need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But no, it was good.
That's why I have love for Fight Club over the years, man. It's just dudes like just saying it and like the stuff that needs to be said that hasn't been said. And that's what I love about it. Teaching
them. I want to say discipling. Anyway, getting other men to be curious about other men.
It's huge.
That is, I think, a hard thing for them. It is hard,
but it's a game changer.
Yeah. Because all the variations, all the groups, I think we're sitting here talking for an hour and a half because we have that. It's ingrained in us already.
We've been there.
Like, okay, yeah. And then you ask questions. Getting men to ask questions and be curious is tough.
Yeah.
And one of Roy's teachings. Hey, John, what do you think about Jared's question?
How's that making you feel?
How's that making you feel?
Right.
I can't do it as fluent as Roy can.
Yeah, no.
And sometimes I don't even think about it while we're in group, but I'll think about it outside. I go, oh, dang, I should have got him to and ask him the question, but also retaining the information about another guy that would know, okay, he relates to that. He probably didn't realize he's relating to that. Asking the right question. Hey, what do you think about so-and-so's story as it relates to you and what you're going through? Being attentive is another key.
Yeah. And actually listening. A quote I read the other day was, most men are living lives of quiet solitude marked by desperation.
I was there. I mean,
quiet solitude marked by desperation.
Yeah.
So it's like this, we've been duped into thinking that we're alone and need to be.
Yeah.
But we're desperate for something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so getting them to actually admit their desperation is for something else and something more. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the discipleship part of authenticity, and vulnerability and like actually being curious. Because when you're curious about others, guess what happens? You start finding out more about yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
And what another guy I listened to, he made a point in, if you're curious about someone, you can't be, I forgot the word he used. Basically, I can't be angry at you and curious at the same time.
That's good for marriage too.
Yeah, yeah. I can't judge you in a sense of not accepting you and be curious.
As I'm trying to find out about
I'm
you.
trying to find out. It's impossible. So that brings down a barrier.
It's almost like curiosity brings grace in a way.
Yeah. And man, I know me and you could probably sit here and talk for 2 or 3 hours. But watching news videos, because I don't have social media.
Yeah.
But seeing videos through news articles or new, whatever, like I get, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I get when Jesus preached, he probably upset the apple cart. Oh, yeah. I know he did.
Oh yeah.
But watching these videos of street preachers and they get in these arguments, why don't you flip that argument into a curiosity? Instead of telling them, "Hey, you're going to hell because you're in sin and you're doing it wrong." Hey, why are you acting the way you're acting? Like what happened in your life to get you to this point, to get them in that self-awareness? And I can say this from this chair because I don't go out on the street preaching.
Sure.
So I get it. I'm not out there, and I'll tell you, I don't feel very like evangelism is a big part of who I am.
Yeah. Ross
said this is my evangelistic thing. I was like, I can get that.
I agree with that.
But it's also I'm in the safety of behind the camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also if I did get someone in that seat that wasn't a believer and wanted to, we could have that conversation of the curiosity. It's the one-on-one. It's the relational equity of building that where I can probe in deeper.
Love it. Yeah, and it's the heart behind someone's motives that is what it tells us whether or not it's Christ-like or un-Christ-like. And so Jesus, even though he did upset the apple cart, when Jesus was interacting with people that weren't like church leaders, he was pretty hard on the church leaders.
And that's another thought I had. Like when he was after somebody, it was the Pharisees. It was the Pharisees.
Like he wasn't just after everybody.
No.
Whenever he interacted one-on-one, like he was bold, but he was curious. Like he knew everything.
Yeah.
But he'd still ask questions.
Exactly.
And he'd still try to find, because a lot of times the questions aren't for us. The questions are for them.
Yes.
To process and
that
self-awareness that you were talking about. And so Jesus was the same way. Like he knew the answers before he asked the question.
Right.
But he was still asking them because he wanted them to process and them to go through it. And like, so his heart, even though he was bold and he said what needed to be said, he called out sin and he called them to more. He did it from a place of like, there's more for you and I love you enough to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's discipleship. There's more for you and I love you enough to tell you about it. Yeah. Even though in this moment, you may get aggravated, you may get pissed off, and you may be done with me for a while.
Yeah. For a little while.
And that's okay. But I'll still be here.
Yeah.
When you come back. And so I think, I'm not real big on like the street preacher yelling at people, but I have seen some guys do it the right way where they go up and they just have conversations with people and they talk to them like that. And that's the right way.
Yeah. Right? And I get it. The person you're talking to, they may not want to talk to you and they start yelling back and then
that's on them.
Yeah. But again, she must be like I said, I can say that from the comfort of my living room.
From the home studio.
Yeah, from the home studio here. But I don't know. Anyway, I could start talking to you. We could, like I said, me and you could probably sit here and talk for hours, which I appreciate. But I don't think I have enough space left on my hard drive because it's yelling at me.
I hear you.
And I don't want to lose anything, so I think I'm gonna call us.
I love it.
I
appreciate it, man. I'll come back anytime.
Yeah.
And I'll be your wingman. I'll help you get other guys in the seat. Well,
and then that's another problem. I know I'm on this camera and I'm doing stuff, but I'm a quiet person.
For sure.
Yes, I want to have a conversation with you, but me getting over my fear of talking to you in the first place.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You're IT.
Yeah.
I'm sales. So, hey, we got to work together.
Yeah. Yeah, because I am the guy in the back.
Yeah.
I'd much rather serve and do something, and that's why I find this so humorous that guys like, no, I'm going to put you on camera in front of everybody.
I love it. It's the best.
Yeah. Just being obedient.
You're really great at teasing out people's stories, though. I watched a few of your ones with the guys from, mostly the Fight Club guys, but you're great at it. It's not easy. I've had to try to do it a couple of times. It's not easy, and you're really great at teasing people's stories out and being curious, and so just keep doing it.
Yeah, I actually when Tyler was coming over, I was dealing with a whole bunch of things then too.
Sure,
and even when you were coming over, dealing with all this stuff, this actually is kind of calming to me.
Sure, having
just doesn't matter cameras on or lights or whatever. I enjoy the conversation.
Yeah.
Again, which leads back to the fact I realize how much I value words.
Amen. Love it.
But anyway, well, man, I appreciate you being the 40th.
Number 40.
Number 40.
I turned 40 this year.
And
the 40th episode.
40th episode.
We said it a while ago. We'll say it again. Serendipity. I'm from New Iberia, so I mispronounce most words I try to say. But serendipity.
Man, you got to talk like you from down now.
It comes out every now and then, especially when I start talking about food, or if I start talking with my buddies from over there, it'll come out like that.
Oh, I want to say, are we in the living room?
Yeah. It's the living room.
Room?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all good.
Because I know you can give it back.
Yeah.
Quite easily. You're quite contained.
It's almost like a spiritual gift.
Yeah.
If you bring like a third person in here for one of these, I'll just roast that person as you interview them and show people what I got.
Yeah. That's what I said. You're quite contained right now, which is neither good nor bad. It is what it is right now.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, man,
thank you.
I appreciate you coming, sharing your story, having conversation. I love doing this. This aspect of it is great to me. It's been encouraging.
Awesome.
After
For me too.
Dealing with all the things I've been dealing with, this has been an uplifting experience.
Love it, man.
Getting to talk.
Love you. Love your family.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are here.
Well, until next time, I don't know who's going to be next, but I'll see y'all in the next episode. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the Hope Over Coffee podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast app. This includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube for the video version of this episode. Don't forget to connect with us on social media where we share inspirational content and updates for the upcoming episodes. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hope Over Coffee. Thanks again for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next time over a cup of coffee.